be for content marketing. So we're going to come and discuss the themes on that. So again, newsletter, look out for it. And also for the next panel, I'm actually going to ask if anyone wants to host it. So I'm going to be putting out a form. If you've got an idea, a concept, submit it to me. Any idea of who you want to speak on it, and we're going to basically create a panel of people to decide who's going to be hosting the next one. So that's probably going to be November, December's panel, maybe October. Again, newsletter, come see me, social channels, schedule. To join the newsletter, contenttalks.ca. But that's kind of everything I've got to say first, so let's bring Randy up, and we're going to talk about our content marketing. I guess it'd be good to tell us about how you kind of created Uberflip and how you got to this position, and what's your background and how you started this company.
Sure. I would tell many years in a few moments that it is here. So, I mean, the truth is, when I got started with Uberflip, or when I joined Yo as my co-founder, I actually couldn't find a job. I was, I guess, frictionally unemployed is always a fun term to throw to that, where I run a couple of companies, but not in areas that I was really passionate about. I'd also been a marketer at some companies. I wanted to get into tech, but no one wanted to hire. I mean, there weren't a lot of tech opportunities back in 2010, or not to the degree there are today, I should say. In the startup space. So it was somewhat of a necessity wanting to get into that space that we realized that we could take some technology that he had built on the side, my co-founder, try and monetize that. So I joined him with the idea of, this was in 2010, of taking a PDF tool that we have, which is still a part of our product today, and trying to bring it to market for publishers. And after about 4 or 5 months, my advice was we shouldn't do that. We were trying to sell to publishers. They were struggling themselves with PDFs, or magazines was the format most often. But we saw a small subsegment of marketers who were using the solution for ebooks, right? Very natural extension. And we had probably 5 or 6 other use cases. We had educators using the tool. We had legal firms using it for documents, and all these different ideas. And often people ask us, why did we choose marketers? I think in the end of the day, it was passion, right? We were passionate about marketers, both in terms of the career that I had had to date, what I'd studied in school. Yo, my co-founder, in his case, he loved marketing. He was more the web developer, design element of marketing teams very often. So we saw that ability to just fix a bit of what we saw would be a problem in the future.
So obviously content marketers is your big focus, and you're the chief marketing officer of the content experience platform. Why would you write a book about content marketing?
Yeah, so first I never thought I'd write a book. I mean, if you went to my high school yearbook, most likely, or if there was a least likely, it probably would have been finish a book in terms of reading, let alone writing. So it wasn't one of those things I thought I would do, but I often like to write short bits of content. Blog posts, just different thoughts that I had, and there's a really bright marketer. If any of you ever had the chance to hear, speak, or speak to Andy Crespedina, anyone ever heard Andy speak? He's amazing, based out of Chicago. He runs an agency called Orbit Media, and Andy said to me once, he's like, don't get overwhelmed at the idea of writing a book. He said he had an acronym for it, which was it's your elbow. And I was like, what is that? And it stands for lifetime body of work. And he said your book ends up really just being all the thoughts that you've had over time, brought together with some sort of storyline that glues them all together. So I started to have that in the back of my mind. And then a few years ago, I wrote a blog post. If you've read the book or you grab a copy later on, by all means. I wrote a blog post a few years ago, and the blog post was one that I wrote on an airplane. I often write blog posts on airplanes when there's no Wi-Fi. It's getting harder now because there is Wi-Fi. I can be expected to do work. But my team would always love it when I would take these flights, because I would land after no Wi-Fi, and all of a sudden they would have this week's blog post in their inbox. And they'd be like, Randy was just on a flight. This time I written this post, and the headline was "Fuck Content Marketing," and I immediately got back no happy smiley faces or anything like that, just an email saying there's no way we're posting this, and you know, went on to say like we're going to offend everyone, our customers, our future customers, you know, our super fans who are out there. And I wrote back, I'm like, did you actually read the post? You know, just like read the post, see what my point is here. And, you know, once it actually took about 4 months to convince my team that we should post that blog post. And the point was not that we should stop content marketing, right? In fact, that was one of the suggestions, soften it, you know, change the post. Don't make it fuck content marketing, make it stop content marketing. Or, you know, there were more wordy versions, you know, don't focus on so much content creation if you're not going to use the content. I'm like, that's not a catchy post. So eventually what came out was the meat of the post and now the book was the idea that there really is no point in creating all the content that we create if it's not going to get used. And, you know, before I wrote this post, I found an article by Serious Decisions, which, if people know, it's an analyst firm. It sits under Forrester now. They were bought about a year ago. And the stat that they dropped was that 70% of the content that we create goes unused. Now, people have challenged me on what does that mean, so I actually reached out to people at Serious to say, exactly what do you mean by 70% goes unused? And the answer was like, putting it on your website as an example doesn't mean it's used. Because the reality is, just because you create an amazing blog post, an amazing ebook, you produce an amazing video, whatever the asset is, just because it's on your website, doesn't mean people are going to find it. Yes, if it's optimized for SEO, that's going to help. But a lot of us are trying to sell to companies that we're trying to bring to our homepage or some landing page, and we all of a sudden expect that people will just go find all that content, right? It's, you know, it's this idea that they will go navigating through different menus and go to the 6th page where we have this awesome blog post that we wrote 6 months ago. But we don't do that in our everyday, right? We don't go to Google, right? I mean, when's the last time you went to Google and went to page 2 of the search results, right? It's just, we don't go there. And there's all these jokes that it's the best place to hide something. This is bad jokes, by the way, dad jokes. I mean, the reality though today is that we're almost shifting to not even going to result number 2, but we just expect result number 1 to be the ultimate result. I mean, in my own home, my kids have gotten, I don't even know if it's lazy, it's just their expectations for the right content at the right time is amazing, right? They talk to these Google Home devices. They'll be like, hey Google, they don't set someone's phone off. Hey Google, or Alexa, we have both. You know, tell me this, or you know, how do I make poached eggs? And you instantly expect Google to give you that result. All Google's doing is it's going to the first result of the search results. And that's what your audience is going to start to do with everything. So this idea, again, of 70% of content goes unused just means that we don't put it in context to the audience that we're working with. Now, putting it on, as I said, page 6 doesn't mean people will find it. We have to line up content the way people expect to consume content on channels like Netflix or Spotify.
And I think it's something that I've noticed, the kind of thing, particularly in our kind of last panels, that we kind of had this idea of like content, we've always got to be creating content, or you know, consistency is key, that's kind of the same thing. But I've noticed recently we want to pull back. Should we be creating that content, and should we be looking at can we create better content? And in your book, you kind of talk about the experience, obviously, or you know, pushing people through a sales funnel. Have you always been of that opinion, or were you ever of the opinion of like just get as much content out of it as possible?
No, I was definitely guilty of everything I read in the book to not obsess over, right? I mean, you know, you can ask, I don't know if anyone from my marketing team tonight, but they would tell you, and I would always say like, oh, I don't know if we're bringing out content on a regular enough cadence, right? Like we need 3 times a week or 4 times, or whatever the number was. It could even be 1 for some of us that we debate. But I think at one point, one of the things that I realize is, what are we really trying to do? What we're trying to do, at least at Uberflip, and I know a lot of companies who have complex buying decisions or new cohorts of people who come in on a regular basis, we have to remember that what's new to someone today may also be new to someone in 3 months from now, right? So this idea of we need to create more and more content, well, we're doing that really if we just want to be a thought leadership website, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. For some of you, that may be very important, and you may need that regular cadence of content. So take places like, for us marketers, you probably go to places like Marketing Profs, or Convince and Convert, or even HubSpot. All of these have set themselves up to be daily places that we go to remain right on top of the trends that are coming out. But there's others of us who are really just trying to guide different cohorts of buyers through a sales funnel. And in those cases, the most relevant piece of content might be something that we created 6 months ago, not 6 days ago. The problem for most of us, as I said, is that that asset lives on page 6 or 16 or 72, right? And we expect people to go find that. Or if they do find it, let's say they find it through SEO, or we direct them to that asset, well, then what happens is they say, okay, well, I really like this piece of content. I'm going to go to the next piece of content. But if this post was created 6 months ago, the one that was created 6 months and 1 day ago may no longer be relevant. But a lot of us, our web pages or our blogs or our resource centers or wherever we're directing people to, they're set up often either chronologically, or some of us do it by format. Like, think about your own website. Like, how many of us have our content organized by format? We have one page for our blog, we have another one for our ebooks, right? Another one for videos, another one maybe for webinars, because some of those are different videos. And then, if we're still doing infographics, we have an infographic page, right? We publish and create content that way, and then we post it to our site that way. But our audience doesn't consume content that way. They don't think to themselves, okay, like I'm gonna figure out what Perrier does by going, and it's a bad example, because it's not a very complex buying decision, but what Perrier does by going to their site and watching videos. They say, no, I'm thirsty, or I need my thirst quenched. Give me content to help me understand what the best solution is for my office. I'm trying to make it into a more complex buying decision, but it's obviously pretty instinctive.
Personalization obviously is a big key in the book, and what you just spoke about. Like, when you do go to Spotify, it has that list of songs created to you. But if someone finds us on Google and they come to our page, never been to us before, like how do we personalize that content to someone who's found us through Google or Facebook or however it may be?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first off, I talk a lot about Spotify in the book, and I talk about it in a lot of the talks I do. I think Spotify is amazing in terms of the way they personalize. I think we're starting to live in this streaming world where it's not just Netflix and Spotify. We're seeing it everywhere, right? Like, I don't know, does anyone have a Peloton? I have a Peloton. It's the coolest thing ever. If you don't know what Peloton is, it's this bike where instead of me having to go to a spinning class, I have a spinning class in my home, but it's completely personalized to me. And as soon as I'm done one bike, it's like tempting me to do another one. And we're starting to see that everywhere. So the Spotify example that I often talk about though is the fact that if, there's probably, looks like 75 people in this room, if all of us pulled out our Spotify, or Apple Music, whatever you use, but Spotify, and we went to the home of it, there's this playlist called Made For You. And it truly is made for us. It doesn't mean that AC/DC's, creating your own music, but it's picking music that truly is intriguing to each of us individually. And that's amazing that every one of us can open our phone and expect that type of experience. And the same thing exists on Netflix, right? We open up Netflix, and unless our kids have logged into our accounts, it's going to be truly what's personalized to us, and we won't get Peppa Pig, right? So, there's that expectation for all of us today, and that's where we live. We live on these devices, right? Like, we're on here, we're watching our Netflix shows, we're listening to Spotify music, and we're even getting emails and different notifications from Spotify and Netflix saying, we picked content specifically for you, right? Like something that you care about. And I don't know about you, when I get those, I'm like, I actually want to see what's coming out, right? I'm really intrigued to know what's coming. But then somehow we expect that as marketers, we can send these generic emails that are just going to appeal to everyone, and then people will tune in, right? And it's the same notification that comes in on the same device, and we kid ourselves by saying, well, that's Spotify or that's Netflix. I don't have to do that. That's a consumer experience. But for a lot of us who are helping to power these more complex buying decisions, whether it's B2B or B2C, we have to know that that's what we're competing against. Now, to your point, the question is like, how do you do this? Well, we're seeing it happen a lot. Like let's move off Netflix and Spotify. Think about, I like LinkedIn for content. That's kind of my go-to aggregator, if you will. What I like about it is I don't follow my friends who are social workers. My wife's a social worker, but I like them. But I don't follow those people on LinkedIn. I don't connect with them per se. And that's Instagram or Facebook for me, things like that. But what I like about it is it's a curated audience, and in turn, the news that's fed to me is also curated to my interests. And all of a sudden, I find myself, I'm sure a lot of you do this, it's like, I'm just going to see what's going on there. I'll spend 5 minutes. 20 minutes later, I'm still on LinkedIn, just doing this. Right? It's that infinite scroll. Right? It's the same thing that exists on Instagram, on Facebook, on Netflix, like we said, on Spotify. And then what that leads to is it leads to more engagement, right? What we have to figure out is how to emulate those experiences as marketers. How do we get people to land on our content destinations and say, well, I'm not going to leave? And that's a huge shift in thinking, because a lot of us, we've been trained by, I guess, like marketing automation systems and things like that, that it's just, that success is like one click, right? Like think about all the marketing campaigns that you run, whether it's, let's say it's an email that you're sending out, or a paid ad that you're putting out, or a text message if you have text message SMS functionality in your marketing campaigns. Or it could be emails that your sales team are sending out either from their inbox or from something like SalesLoft or outreach tools like that. All of these, we have historically thought, like as long as I send that out and I get them to click on one link in there, we're probably tracking that in our marketing automation, and then we're like, success, right? Like I got engagement. But how many of us think about, okay, well, how do I get them to click on like 7 things at once? Or not at once, but flow through to 7 different assets. To me, that's success. Because if we can do that, then we're going to accelerate our sales velocity. And so back to your original question, the sales funnel. How do we start to think not about all the pieces of content we should create over the next 4 months, but how do we think about the content that we should have on an ongoing basis to guide people step to step? Because when people are ready to buy, I would argue they are ready to buy. They're not like, I'll watch one piece and then I'll come back next week. Right? That's like waiting a week for an episode of television, which is just crazy to us now.
You bring up a good point of like kind of putting people through a flow of content. I did want to challenge you a little bit on that. Like, let's say we created 7 pieces of content that put it on the website, whether it's video or whatever. Is there a case to be made to unlist the other 6 so people land on that first one and kind of go through the flow, even though it might cost you traffic?
It's a great question. Just to rephrase it, the question is, do we want to land someone into one asset and get them to start there, or do we want to land them into a collection of content and let them kind of decide what's best for them? Is that
kind of like we want to control where they start their journey rather than kind of leaving up to brand reports by unlisting other assets, even though it might cost us traffic because we don't get that SEO.
Yeah, so I would say it depends. I'm not against dropping someone into the one asset. Where my earlier point was, we really have to think about what are we going to serve next to them. As I said, a lot of us, what ends up happening is because we don't always have control of these experiences as marketers, we drive someone to that blog post and the next asset was the one created the day before, as opposed to what's relevant to the topic, the industry, the account that we're trying to sell into. And for others, as we said, it could just be format. They're stuck now, in a stream of videos that have nothing to necessarily do with each other other than they were all created by your brand. So that's the more important is if we are going to lion someone into a specific asset, really give thought to what is going to be suggested next, or what is going to be suggested at the bottom of the post as other relevant content, or sometimes as we stream through content, we find other relevant content that may appeal to us. The argument sometimes for dropping someone into not just one asset, but giving them choice, is that for some of us, we have to remember that we're selling into large buying groups. I don't know the exact number, but the number just keeps getting really fucking scary. The CEB numbers, they want to track the latest number. I think it's 9.6 buyers. It used to be 5 point something, then it was 6.9. I don't understand how point something of a person exists, but I guess these are averages. But the stat, just so you understand it in its meaning, is how many people are weighing into your buying decision. So these are, again, more complex buying decisions, not packs of gum or Perrier's. Who's deciding who's going to weigh in? So CEB, which is a subdivision of Gartner, they talk about who that buying committee is. CEB is also the group that wrote the Challenger sale, and later on the Challenger marketer, and it talks about this need to educate an entire group. And sometimes when you need to educate an entire group, the right asset for one group, one person of that account may not be the right one for the other. So sometimes it helps to be able to drop someone in to find different assets that are going to help them win over their entire team. I'll give you a real example here. Our sales cycle, we started to realize we'd get stuck at 90% opportunity stage. We just couldn't figure out what was going on. And for us, we used to just fly through 80 to 100. It was getting someone to 80 was tricky, but in there, we were done. And what we realized was that we actually had to do a better job at arming our sales team around navigating procurement groups. Because as we had moved up market, we moved from selling a very low cost, smaller organization to larger enterprises who were using procurement groups who wouldn't understand details without going into the details of how our platform worked from a legal perspective or different issues around data privacy. So what we realized we had to do, we had to create content for the other people who were part of that buying group. And make sure that we could arm our team with different assets. So in that case, we wanted to drop someone into a collection of content with the right assets for different buyers who are going to weigh in.
So you might have stats about ROI from the accounting department to kind of get their buy-in compared to how that's going to automation work from the marketing department. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Absolutely. I mean, forget about that. What we need to do, I think for everyone here, is think about who are the different people weighing in, right? Because a lot of the time we just think about our champion in the sales process, but our champion may have a boss or may have a team working under them who they need to get to rally around. And the question there becomes, what are we going to do to educate the other people who aren't outside?
So personalization obviously is a big key to this, and usually that comes with data. But we're kind of seeing some forces go against that, especially with governments and Russia investigations of Facebook and GDPR, Castle. Are you a little bit concerned that we might see a clampdown on being able to collect data or privacy laws?
Listen, I don't think that the current solution is a good one. All we've done as marketers, and marketers are complying, is we've made it necessary for someone to say accept. Right? It's the stupidest. We all just click that accept button that we all put in for GDPR compliance, and it's just a hurdle that we all have to overcome. I think there's a great opportunity to disrupt there and do a better job. But I think I don't know if it's as much as I think people will continue to work around this, right? I mean, even Google themselves, they want people to be able to track. I mean, that's what their whole business is built around. I think the key is to make us more responsible with what we do with data. And there's two ways to think about responsibility with data. There's being, having the right systems in place to guard that data and treat it properly and make sure it's used properly. But then there's also being all Spider-Man, it's with that, data comes great responsibility, right? Like, what are we going to do with that? What opportunities are we going to take from that? So it's funny, I have a friend, I talk about this guy in the book, literally my best friend growing up, but he's very opposite of me in so many ways. He doesn't understand technology, he hates technology, he avoids it. Like, I think he just got off his BlackBerry onto an iPhone. And it's okay, I still love the BlackBerry people. They're doing cool stuff now, actually. I saw a cool presentation about what they're doing to power cars, but tangent. Anyways, so as I said, he doesn't trust technology, yet there's things that it weaved into his life that he's just learned to trust because it's so natural. Right? And we've talked about some of them already. He's got kids very similar ages to mine, and I go over to our kids play together, I go over to his house, and Netflix is on. And I'll say to him, like, I see you come into the 21st century, and he's like, yeah, that's just Netflix, it's no big deal. Like, it's tracking you. It's like, it's not tracking anything. I said, well, how do you think it knows what videos to play for you? This is that now. I said, it doesn't bother me at all. I said, okay, that's good to know, because I just don't like being tracked. I said, okay. I said, well, you use Google, right? And he's like, yeah, I use Google, but Google doesn't really track me. They're just delivering me search results. I told you he doesn't understand technology. He's like, it's just delivering me what everyone's searching for the most. And I was like, no, yes, but no. It's delivering you what's relevant to you and your search history and what's around you. I mean, I saw this gentleman speak from Google a few months ago, and he talked about how we moved away from typing things like the beer store near me in our Google search to just beer store. Right? Like, we just expect that Google knows that I want the beer store near me and not the beer store that's currently in Collingwood, Ontario. Right? So those expectations are going away. And again, I said to my friend, how do you feel about that? He's like, no, it's okay. I trust Google. Right? And the key thing there is that these companies like Google, like Netflix, they're taking the ability to track us and their added value in return. And I think that's the key takeaway that we have to look at with privacy is, what are we doing with the data that we have? Are we using it in a responsible way, but also are we using it in a way that adds value? So if people start coming to your website and you don't use the cues that are out there to deliver them a personalized experience, they're very quickly going to make this mental decision that says, do I trust you or do I not trust you? Right? And if they not yet, but eventually, remember that button I said that's so fucking dumb, that yes, I accept, you can track me? We're going to get to the point where we just, we look at the site and we're like, oh no, this isn't personalized. I'm not going to let you accept to track anything I do. Right? We opt into being tracked when we think that there's going to be value that's going to be added. And I'll give you, I think, the best example that all of us do. We do this so quickly without any thought. So the next time you go, it's going to drive you nuts now, you're not going to do it as natural. But the next time you go and you download an app, like a brand new app on your iPhone or your Android device, as you open it up, it asks you a couple of very quick questions. Can we track you? And can we send you notifications? And you do this very instant thing in your mind. You're like, okay, am I going to get value here? Right? And we subconsciously do it without much thought, but we're putting a lot of thought in terms of other relevant experiences that we have on our phone. Do we want to be tracked? Is this worth it? That's what we're going to do everywhere that we go. We're going to debate in our mind, can they add value or can they not add value?
One interesting thing kind of about the book is you do not really talk about content creation, I think, at all. You do talk about the experience and how it's delivered, so website design being an important aspect of that, and how the sales team uses your content being an important part of that. Is anyone here in content marketing in charge of the design of the website at all? Got one, two, yeah, a little bit. So I guess my question is like, how do you see the perfect role for a content marketer? Like, what duties do they have under them to make sure that the content is optimized?
Sure. So first off, as you said, the purpose of the book was not another book on how to create great content. Like, you want a great book on that? Anne Hamley, who's written some great books, so many great books. You know, team at CMI like Robert Rose and Joe Clusi, you know, they all write great books on creating great content. I think that I know a lot of people in this room have content-related roles, content marketer. I spoke to some of you on the way in, but I think out of the gate, the idea that we had a job title called content marketer versus perhaps content creator was a bit of a mistake. Because the idea of content marketing, as I always say, was supposed to mean a lot more than it's been defined as. And that's not a bad thing, it's just a reality. Right? A lot of us define content marketing as creating content. But if you go, and I just mentioned Joe and Robert at CMI, if you go to their original definition of content marketing, yes, it talks about creating content to attract an audience that's relevant, consistent, goes on to talk about the value of creating content, but it finishes off with a part that we just ignore, which is to drive profitable customer action. I mean, that's literally the end of the definition. It's such a long definition that they have, you honestly just don't get there. So what happened was, and I think this happened in so many different ways with content marketing, both the people, as you talk about the processes and the technology, we all know those triangle diagrams of people, process, technology, we built all of that around the idea of content creators. Right? So a lot of the people in this room probably are tasked with creating a lot of content. I think that's a really hard job that is undervalued, and because we don't use all that content as effectively as we could, they probably don't get highlighted for the success that they're contributing towards the organization and towards sales processes. Same thing with marketing technology. There's a whole bunch of technology out there that is known as a content marketing platform, and those solutions don't really get into aspects like distribution of content or content experience, which we've been talking a lot about essentially tonight. They get really deep on creating content. So these are great companies. Kapost, great company if you know Kapost, Contently, NewsCred, ClearVoice. All these companies help us with content creation. So it brings up the question that you have, Michael, which is, where does the job of a content marketer begin and end? And I think it really depends on your organization. I think that it's more than suffice to say that the role of the content marketer is to understand the audience they're writing for, create content, and then figure out what content's working. I think that's a lot to take on in itself. The problem is, in some organizations, especially smaller organizations, we need content marketers to do more, either out of necessity or just everyone's got to roll up their sleeves and simply do more. The real answer, I think, is the real question rather, I'll tell you the answer, is who should the content marketer be matrixing within that organization to make sure that their content is used more effectively. And that's when you start to get into different roles like demand generation, digital marketers, you get into your marketing ops individuals, you get into the people who are sending emails out of a Marketo or Pardot or Eloquent or whatever you happen to be using. And once you start to think about it that way, now the role of the content marketer is elevated in a much more meaningful way. And I think that is something that has to happen. I'm probably going to piss someone off by saying this, or the content marketer becomes like social media marketer, who are often just left completely out of the loop and thought of just to be, posting 140 characters, not necessarily adding value. I don't feel that way with social media marketers. I have a great social media marketer on my team because they're using social as a medium, to engage with our audience and get them back to our content in a meaningful way at this stage. So they're brought into that matrix as well. But I think content marketers have to figure out, to answer you, how they're going to play inside of the activities that are driving revenue.
So I want to step away from the book a little bit because I want to pick your brain on a few things. Obviously, in this role, you probably dealt with convincing a lot of C-suite to buy your product. I'm wondering, do you have any tips on how to get buy-in on marketing ideas from the top levels of the company who might not necessarily know what marketing does?
Sure. I think it's you got to figure out what people's motivation is. And when I say what their motivation is, it's what's their motivation in their role, what's their motivation in their own career, what are they aspiring to do. For us, as an example, we don't often get to speak to the CMO out of the gate, but if we can speak to the CMO, that's amazing. So the CMO doesn't care about how much content is being used or unused. Yeah, this 70% stat. Like, they don't really care about that, but they care about how that content could be used to drive revenue, right? Because the CMO is not sitting there, losing sleep over how efficient content is being created or not, right? They're losing sleep over, did we drive enough leads? Did we drive enough revenue? Yes, they'll be worried about those aspects around content creation, because they want to empower their team, they want them to be more efficient, they want to be happy, they want to stay on their deadlines. But their CEO, who's probably their boss, the CMO usually will report into the CEO, that CEO cares about driving revenue. So it is not likely, in our world as an example, to expect that the CMO is going to go update the CEO on how efficiently they're creating content right now. It's just not going to matter to them. Now, that's something that we can help with in terms of how that content goes out, but we have to pick the right talk track to speak to each individual with. So, back to your question, I think it's really taking the time to understand what's motivating someone.
I've got a few more questions here, but I'm just looking at the time, so I think I'm going to open it up to questions out there. Anyone's got any questions they want to ask? Over there. Right at the back.
I guess building on your last question, and then about what you've already been talking about the evolution of content marketing, how do we get buy-in from other marketing executives? I'm on board with content marketing, it's all about the experience, let's do it. How do I convince the other people on my team, the people who are senior to me, that that's the right way forward, as opposed to them obsessing about whether we've done our blogs all week?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think sometimes you have to change the narrative a bit and change those associations that people have. So, people are starting to care about content experience as an example. We've been talking about this here for years, right? 7 years. It's been hard. The term didn't even exist. We know we created it because we debated between two terms. And content experience wasn't out there, and there was another one that was, and we like what we chose. But it's starting to leverage that traction and showing people how it makes a difference. So a couple things that have happened really well in the industry and happening around us. One is with Forrester. So Forrester's an analyst group, again, like Sirius Decisions, actually owns Sirius now. And we went through a really tricky decision this past year, which was we were invited to participate in their wave. So they have a wave called Content Marketing Platforms. And the debate was, do we do this at the same time, literally the same week that we released the book, Fuck Content Marketing? And so it was a fun debate, but we viewed it as an opportunity to change the narrative. And when there's a couple of great analysts there who were involved in the report, Brian Skinner and Laura Ramos, and I've known Laura for a little while now. And you could just get the sense that they were starting to realize that creating content wasn't all that content marketing was supposed to be. So if you look at how they split out the wave, if you participate in a wave before, there's usually 5 criteria. That's their term. I've learned with analysts you have to use their terms, as silly as they sound. 5 criteria that they look at, and the 5 for content marketing, if I get them right, are governance, planning, production utilization, and activation. So you take 5 and you divide 100 by 5, you would say that each one would get 20% weight. Now, they split them up as they see fit. In the past, activation, which is really what we're talking about here, it's like how do we leverage content in a more strategic way? It was like 15%, and other stuff like, I think it's planning was as high as 30% in the weight. This year, it was a complete flip. So they just came out with the wave. We scored well, but not great because we don't do any of the first 4 things. We don't help with governance, production, plan, well, we do a little bit, but we don't really focus in that area at Uberflip. We focus really heavily on activation, and we scored the highest in activation, and this time activation was the only factor that got over 30% weight, or sorry, over 20% weight, it got 30%. So I think that there's that shift that's happening. Now, back to your question, it's bringing that research back in, getting your hands on that report, and leveraging that report to kind of change the way you think about content in your organization, to challenge the demand team to say, listen, like, we're creating all this content, but it's on you to go in and start to embed that content inside of the campaigns in this more streaming-like experience. There's other report. I mean, I think Forrester is pretty authoritative. There's also G2. It used to be called G2 Crowd. Now call it G2 because they had a lot of money, so they got a G2 domain. And I like those guys a lot. I'm just kidding about them. But G2, they're a little bit faster to adapt. They actually took content marketing last year. So whereas Forrester has a wave, Gartner has a magic quadrant, I think they call it grid at G2. So that's how they look at the landscape. And they said, okay, they said content marketing is pretty confusing. They came out and they split content marketing into 3 grids. They have content creation, content experience, and content distribution. So they looked at it as 3 different ways of looking at it. And when you start to break it down like that for others in your organization, you start to understand, okay, this isn't just about creating content, we need a strategy for each of these things, right? We need a strategy for experience, we need a strategy for distribution, we probably have a creation strategy, otherwise we wouldn't be at this point of realizing what are we doing with all this money that we're spending. Hopefully that helps.
Hi. So I was really interested in what you were saying at the beginning of the conversation when you were talking about how Google knows what I want, Netflix knows what I want, and what it comes down to is an algorithm. So I'm coming here today, I'm primarily in public relations, but I fell into content marketing, and now I'm director of marketing communications, and I do this on the side as well for my own blog. But what I find really interesting is that we're seeing a lot of automation. We're now being told what we like based on what we think we like. So it's like a never-ending continuation. So what I'm curious about is, how are you now thinking in terms of content marketing about competing against the bots, the algorithms, the human-made intelligent automation that is actually probably going to really start telling us how we think. So what is your strategy now in content marketing and content strategy to fight against the algorithms, against the bots in terms of going human to human as opposed to human and a bot?
That is a whole talk on its own. That's a good question. So the first thing is I'm not against the bot in any way. I think there are realities, but I don't think it's as simple as like, everything's going to be run by a machine, at least anytime soon, right? Like, when we look at it, even Amazon, I mean, half the suggestions they have for me make no sense, right? And Netflix too, sometimes, they're not perfect. If you look at Spotify, we all love the made-for-you playlist. They have real people who are tagging their content. Not real robots. Like real people are actually sitting there tagging their content. So, one of the things that I talk a lot about is in the book is this framework for how we think about, personalizing experiences at scale. And the first two stages before we can even get to the point of automation and whatnot is pulling together the content that we have, which I speak to as centralizing the content. And the second step is organizing content, which is where we get into a lot of the auditing things that we either hate doing because they take too long, or we just don't do because they're not sexy and they're not fun as marketers. So we ignore that part very often. I think that that part is so important to being able to work with automation the way we think about it. It's really interesting when we think, I mean, I know again, a lot of us in this room are in content roles, but I'm sure a lot of your roles may touch on, or you work really closely with like the email marketing automation manager, or whatever their job title is on your team, demand manager, marketing ops, whatnot. And it's funny because those people sound like this group, but they have been trained, and we have all been trained to think about how to master email automation. So if I wanted to use Eloqua, my brain can work through a workflow and like whiteboard out what happens if someone engages in email 1, right? If they do or they don't, then I have different paths to go to email 2, or different types of nurtures that are going to follow based on different activities that are happening. So we think that way with email, but we don't think that way with content. Right? We just think, get them to this one piece, but not, oh, if they get to this one piece, then what? So we just have to transfer our thinking, which, as we know with email, it's not all, like that's the stupidest term that we gave those platforms, marketing automation platforms. Like, there's nothing really automated other than the send, but there's a lot of strategy that goes into determining what that path is. I think the opportunity, so that's the first piece, the opportunity with bots and with the idea of AI, which I think is also what you were getting at, is how do we start to use some of those data points to influence what content we're going to do. Now, I still think that we need to take the time to tag content, as we just talked about first, because it's very hard to use AI if we don't have a good tagging process in place. Once we do, we can start to put rules in place. So at Uberflip, the way we accomplish this, we have a data science team here, so that helps us, obviously. But we didn't do it on our own. We have integrations. For a while, we've had a really strategic integration with a company called Bombora. Bombora allows you to take third-party intent data so that when someone comes to your website, before they've even identified themselves through some sort of form submit, you can start to say, okay, this is the stuff that's surging for the organization. So say someone's coming, again, from Perrier, to your website, and you know, based on third-party intent data from a platform like Bombora, that they're surging on the topic of spring water, right? You may be able to map content that you have on your site to spring water to serve up because it's Perrier that's coming in, right? And we're doing this now with as many data points as we can pull in. We're doing something similar with a company called 6 Sense now, also using predictive. So I know I'm getting into the weeds, which I don't want to do. I think the idea is how do we kind of balance art and science, right? Art being people in this room, right? We're all artists. Science being the technology that we can leverage. I don't think that we're anywhere close to the point of just one piece, reigning over the other. I think we need a combination of the two. Does that make sense? We also, just on bots, I don't think you were asking this, but just in case it was, like you look at solutions out there like Drift, there's other ones that are, I know a guy started a company called Pink Pilot, and I think there's an opportunity to pull content into those, because if you've ever engaged in these Drift-like bots or conversational marketing bots that are out there, they're all conditionally formatted. It's like, ask this question depending on what happens. Just like email automation that we talked about. If this happens, then what do I want to ask next? And we got to start to think, how do we actually pull content in there? Not just, how do I direct you to a sales rep? Because we have to remember that a lot of the people come to your site not ready to speak to a sales rep, but because they want to do research. 82% of the research So 80% of the time of the buying cycle is spent doing research. There's only 18% left speaking to sales. It's a lot of time, right? And that's all companies out there. So if we want to earn, say you want to earn, more than a third of the time, because most people look at like 3 vendors or more, then naturally it's simple math. If we want to earn more than 6% of that time with our sales team of the 18%, then I want to earn more than 33% of the time spent doing research. The more I can inject content into the stages that they're doing their outreach, the more I can guide someone along that journey.
Anyone else? Go the closest.
Okay, mine's quick. So basically, if we're being told we really need to write about 300 words per page if we're doing website content, how can we really kind of streamline that and personalize it so that we're still creating this relevant content for users, but also making it SEO friendly?
It's a great question. Just for context, like what type of offering?
So we work in hospitality marketing, so we write hotel websites.
Hotel websites, okay. So I think it depends on hospitality. It's not a market I know overly well, but it depends on the market that everyone here is thinking about with that question. There's a really smart marketer I know at a company called Snowflake. Snowflake is a data warehouse platform. Really cool. They've become like a unicorn status company, but like became that pretty quickly in terms of how they grew. And he talks about this idea that they don't create a ton of custom content. They just make it feel like it's custom. And what they do in that sense, first off, is they start to realize that yes, SEO is important, but on their this guy's name is Daniel. On Daniel's company site, more than 50% of the engagements in content, or reads of content as he calls it, they happen on directed experiences that they serve. They're invested in like account-based marketing, ABM. So what they're finding is that when they drive someone to these destinations through the marketing campaigns that they have, that's when they start to see a ton of people reading their content. So more than 50% of their engagement in content is happening when they put the right content in front of people at the right time. Now, obviously they need to know who the contact record is at that point to do so, but I think that's the opportunity to really start thinking about personalization, right? Because we can't possibly personalize to every single person that's out there, other than using third-party intent data, and using that back to tags that we may have. Maybe getting too into the details now, apologize. But I think the opportunity is to look at what stage in the sales cycle can you get more personalized. Because we just have to start somewhere, right? We try and personalize every single step, it's going to be super overwhelming. So as I said, he doesn't actually personalize any content, or very limited. They've grown over time. So Daniel's story is really cool. They were creating these like destination landing pages of content for different specific accounts that they were going after. And he did the first one, like 10 of them, hacked away at it. It took weeks to do, but he proved significant higher engagement with those accounts and other accounts in the organization. Got pulled into these exec meetings, and they're like, how do you do this? It's like, this is how I do it. They're like, okay, great, do it for 100. He's like, I can't do it for 100. So then he started investing in a bigger team, technology, different pieces. Now, this is about 2 months ago, last I saw him, a month ago. They're doing 1,200 accounts. So 1,200 accounts have custom pages of content. And as he puts it, most of the assets themselves are not customized other than it's specific to the industry, right? So if they're selling Perrier again, it's all stuff around water filtration or whatever it is. But he'll do other things to set context. So things like showing his logo and their logo with like a heart around them, right? Being like, we love you, we understand you, and as a result, here's what we've done, and they'll take their messaging and they'll pull it into the headline of that page to say like, we understand, what do they care about? We understand the essence of water. natural spring water, right? They find some sort of messaging that's out there and they contextualize that page, and all of a sudden everything else starts to feel the same, right? Come back to our Spotify example. As I said, all 75 of you can open up your app and we all feel like they literally picked these 7 songs for me to build a playlist. They're all songs that exist inside of Spotify, right? Again, AC/DC did not compose a track for me, but I feel like it is, right? I feel like they know me so well. So I think that's the part that we can focus on, which reduces the need to create so much content, which, as you said, that's the challenge. You can't keep up. And if all of a sudden you got to do this for 1,000 different hotels, the answer is going to be like, listen, it's just not worth the time and data that goes into it, because writing good content is really hard.
Time for one more, sorry.
Well, I guess my question is the opposite. For the past around 8 years, I've been working in destination events. So film festival, pop cultures events, association events. So I don't have to do the sales. People have to come to these events for many reasons. They're fans, they're committed to this particular environment association. I've been debating and trying to sell the idea for 8 years that you should monetize your content. So when you have an event that lasts for 2, 4, 3 days, you have tons. You have panels, you have information, you have blog posts, you have new trends, you have all this information. And I've always encountered the issue that I do have the content, I just can't sell it internally, and maybe get my supervisors into the idea of selling this content. What's your take on this problem?
So just to clarify, you want to sell the content by charging people to come to the event, or you want to sell the content as in repackaging it up afterwards to sell?
Yes, since I have a guaranteed sale, people have to come to my event. All this content is produced during that event. And I get anxiety because it's like all these wonderful things are happening that I can capitalize on throughout the year, because I will have another event in another year or so. And then I can create a community around this, and I can create an experience around this, and I can create continued conversation throughout between one event and the next. However, every time I try to sell this idea, people come back to me with a concept. Usually the answer is like, this is not our business. However, I do think that that you can capitalize on your content when you are a content producer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think in your case, from what I'm hearing, and I apologize if I'm not on the same path, but is that the content itself is your product, right? So it's a bit of a distinction from some of us who may be trying to think about, how do I use content to get people to buy my other product? Or do you have other products?
So the event is a product.
Right.
In order to get people to go to the event, I have to create content that is based on that event. However, why do we have the event? There is a bunch of content being produced, like right now.
Yeah.
And you did it yourself, right? You capitalize on your post, right? You decided I have this concept, this great idea, and I'm going to make it, I'm going to monetize it somehow. I'm going to get this conversation going besides just selling what I sell, which is content strategies. So how do you sell that idea? How do is it a good idea to capitalize on that, or is it not?
I mean, I hate the independent answer, but so we throw a big event on an annual basis. It's called Connex. Shall come. It's a great event. And it's interesting what's happened over time, because when we started that event, it was, we barely charged a penny. We were just trying to pull people out, to come to the event so that we could, be thought leaders in this idea of content experience. And over time, though, that grows. So I think as things grow, as you get momentum, you have more opportunity to charge. I mean, now, I don't even know the current price for a ticket of our event, but I believe it's over $1,000. We monetize, or we try and break even, I should say, on throwing that event. That costs us $1 million plus. So we need to find ways to offset that as a cost from a thought leadership perspective. During the year, we we don't really monetize any of that in the same way. As an example, we even did 8-city tour in the spring, where we took this event to 8 cities throughout the US, Canada, and we didn't charge at all for that. And a lot of that was reusing some of the content, getting some of the speakers who we already know to come on the road and do those talks with us. So we view it more as, how do we take the huge investment that is that event for us once a year, and how do we turn that into an opportunity to pump out content that's going to feed us all year long? So we take all the keynotes and we get people to agree that we can slice them into these fun little videos we call Remix Your Content. This is like a short 2-minute video. So I guess my answer is, I'm not trying to monetize that content. I'm trying to milk that event though for content that can lead to sales of my product during the rest of the year. Because what we find is that we need to make sure to not over monetize our thought leadership, because we are trying to lead people back to a product that will monetize. It's interesting in terms of your business model, because your product is your event, right? So the question is, well, what thought leadership are you doing to get people towards the event? And there's a lot of events out there. I mean, let's use Content Marketing Institute, because I think they're a great example. Company that, you look at Joe and what he did there, and he's enjoying life now, but they built this company very much around thought leadership, and they managed to monetize a lot of that content, but they had a mix of also free content, right? You go to contentmarketinginstitute.com, or you go to Ann's company, Marketing Profs. There's a lot of daily content that's there for us to digest, and then they have premium content that you can subscribe to. So I think we just have to make sure that we're giving someone enough. For those of us who aren't relating to this use case, think about it the same way around the gate debate, right? Like, do I gate my ebooks or do I not gate my ebooks? I can sway back and forth on this one, but my answer always is, well, we can only gate it if we're giving enough to tease towards it. Right? Like, we have to give something to get something in return. It's everything that we've talked about today. All this privacy stuff is around providing value at the end. To be tracked, to be data companies, to be data-minded companies, we need to trust and feel that there's value. The more we do that, the more open we are to trusting. I'll give you an example that has nothing to do with this that I heard someone present a few weeks ago. I was at a CIBC Analyst Day for technology, and the CEO of OpenText was presenting. This guy Mark, he's a really bright guy, really interesting guy. He was talking about Tesla, right? And he said, like Tesla, when they came out, everyone's like, it's the coolest car company ever. But then Tesla said, no, we're not a car company, we're a technology company. But now, what Tesla is saying is they're not a technology company or a car company, they're an insurance company, right? Or they're going to be the biggest insurance company. We're like, how in the world does that make sense? And the reality there is you think about how much data they have. If you drive a Tesla, they know how fast you're driving, they know how you take the curves, they know how close you stop to the car in front of you. They know what, we all lie about how many miles we did each year on our insurance and whatnot. They know when you drove, what time of day. Why would they insure you, right? I mean, they have all the information at their fingertips to do so. So it's this idea of, okay, great, I trust Tesla, and maybe down the road they'll add more value to me. I think that's where it comes back, is like, to monetize, what value you can add so someone trusts to spend that money with you at the end of the day.
All right, thank you very much.